Now, I will put Henry Chisholm of the DNVR Buffs podcast in the driver's seat because we're going to talk about Jabari Walker, the buff who is heading to the NBA. This is really hard without a monitor. I don't know if the graphics up. If the graphics up, it's going to look and sound sick.
Yeah.
If not, I'm just kind of stalling a little bit. There it is, Hank. It's all you. The strength and weaknesses. The rundown on Jabari.
Yeah. So Jabari is he's a forward. Probably plays the 4, but could wind up playing the 3 because he's not that big. Measured in at like 6'6" 3/4 without shoes at the combine. It's like 212 pounds, I think. So like a good, well-built guy. In general, the combine didn't go well for him. We thought he'd be closer to 6'8", for example. The body fat percentage was like 12%. Which was 56th out of 61 people there. He was like 2 spots behind David Roddy, which is surprising. Like, it's not what you expect from him at all. And then, like, the other testing stuff, like, we didn't want to see him have a 33-inch vertical. Like, that's just not a good number given what he does. And so we'll touch on these strengths. We'll run through these, I guess. The first one that I have on there is the rebounding. I think shot blocking number 2. Yeah, shot blocking number 2. And more so for those two, it's the instincts more than anything else. He's just always around the ball. I think 16 double-doubles this season, which was easily the most in the Pac-12. I think somebody got hot late. It might have been Christian Coloco from Arizona who got up to like 10 double-doubles, but he had doubled the rest of the field for most of the season. Again, the shot blocking. Like from the 4, like as a help defender, he can block a bunch of shots. But again, you look back at that 32-inch vertical, like the 6'10" wingspan is good, but in an era where every wing has a wingspan that's like 5 inches better than their height, it really doesn't stand out all that much. So you wonder how much these two things can really translate. The third point there, the 3-point shooting. Shot, I think, better than 50% as a freshman. Had the big game against Georgetown, the tournament, where he's 5 for 5 from 3. This year took a little step back to like 35%, but on quite a few attempts per game. The release is a little bit slow, so you wonder how much that translates. And obviously, like when you add another step back for every shot, the NBA 3-point line. Again, there's a question there, but you're easily one of his strengths. We can hit these weaknesses real quick too.
Well, actually, real quick.
Okay.
I'll throw it to Dev because I know he's tuned in as well. Yeah. Dev, first, do you agree, with these strengths as listed, and then is there one of those in particular that you feel really confident, pops at the next level? Is sort of how he makes his bread.
The thing that pops at the next level and also is clearly a strength is the rebounding. Mm-hmm. For him to go in at 6'6", in which the idea was that he was a 6'9" guy with a 7-foot wingspan.
Right.
Things like dropped, like the combine was not well, like at all. But for him to rebound at such a high level at 6'6", like those are things that you go on. Like he has all of the physical tools in the world, and also he's the son of an NBA player. So like that played into his part, and now he has to do the rest from there, and he did with the double-doubles, with being an all NBA an all Pac-12 first teamer. Those things like stood out. The shooting, it does kind of worry me just because he was such a good, shooter the first year and then took a dip. Mm-hmm. Yes, on a lot more shots, and yes, because the ball is in his hands a lot more. But you want him to just be a little bit better, a little bit stronger at that, just because you want to have an argument that he could be a small forward, especially if he's not as tall as you once assumed that he was going to be. If he's 6'9" and he's shooting the ball at 35, you're okay. But when you're 6'6", you have to defend other small forwards as well as become a knockdown shooter, a 3-and-D type of guy. And now you made it, and those. That's not nothing you can work on. Like you're your size. So now you really do have to knock the ball down. So the rebounding is what stands out. He grabs the rebounds. That's that you have to battle for. So like he has an engine. He wants it a lot more. He has the physical tools to get to wherever he wants. So like there is some positives for him, but there's also a lot of cons.
Yeah.
Let's get into those cons.
So first of all, again, just kind of a tweener in general. Like, what do you do? You're a power forward who is the size of a small forward.
Right.
There's a way that it works out, but that is pretty easily the most concerning part with Jabari. He's not very polished offensively. Really likes to go to his right hand. Doesn't really have many post moves. He's just a really good athlete.
Right.
You know, he can catch oops and do those sorts of things. But like, again, like you just need to get a little bit of that YMCA game. Not a lot, but just some. And then finally, just his body is not developed. Like, again, we talked about with the body fat. We're just like, that's
concerning.
It is concerning. It is concerning.
Because he doesn't have, like, he has the frame of a guy who should be on the lower end of that.
Totally. And it's another, like, we talk about the vertical. A year from now, he probably adds 4 inches to that, would be my guess. But it just makes you wonder why he's leaving right now. We're saying, like, yeah, just cut down the body fat a little bit, add some muscle, because you are a bit of a tweener. And again, just to talk about where he actually fits, there's kind of 2 roles. Either he plays the 4 and he gets a lot stronger and he gives up a little bit of size, but goes over just fine. And in that case, you probably add some more post moves. Again, the explosion comes and he's more of a cutter, can play the dunker role a little bit. Or he plays the 3, and I think that's the ideal situation, is that you wind up with him playing the 3 and he's quick enough to defend those guys. Again, like, has the tools to be a good defender, just isn't quite there yet. He can block a bunch of shots,
sure,
but he needs to figure that other stuff out. But then also develops the 3-point shot.
Yes, to be the 3.
To be 3 and D. And so I don't know that he's ever going to be able to guard, like, the point guards. Like, you probably need bigger 2s. And he's so close to being the mold of player that you're looking for in the NBA. He's so close. He just doesn't quite have all those tools put together. So he's definitely a project.
Do you get the sense, Dev, when Hank says, sorry, Hank, he's Henry, we call him Hank sometimes.
Yeah.
He's so close to fitting a certain archetype. Do you get the sense that he's aware of this and he's trying to funnel himself into this mold of player?
Absolutely. And his is a lot different because he's not just hearing it from his trainer. He's hearing it from his NBA dad. A dad, like a guy that's been around Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal and guys like that. Like, he is in tuned and he is talking to these type of guys. So they're telling him straight up, it's not just, you're the first guy from your town that can do this and you look a lot different. It's a lot different than Bones Highland. Sure. Than coming from him. And also what shocks me the most is that he is leaving right now. And they said that he was going to keep his name in. Like, I really didn't expect that. Like, when you put your name in, it's to see what it looks like. You just throw your hook in the water and see what happens.
Get a nibble.
And he saw that things didn't go well, so you go back and you get better, or you answer some of those things. Like, usually when this happens, there's a promise of some sort. Like, you're going to be one of the top 40 guys, especially when you get invited to the combine. Right. This is a lot different than a guy that's just like overseas working out, and we're going to see how he looks when he gets here. Like, they know who he is, they know what he does.
He's not falling off that radar if he goes
exactly.
Back to,
so he really does need a year from that. We get into those cons. He's not a great playmaker. So on top of not being a great playmaker, he's not good in isolation baskets. So you don't pass really well, but also you're not able to just score whenever you want to. And I think that's what the biggest issue was for CU fans was, this is your best guy. This is the guy that you want to have the ball in his hands and good things are going to happen. And that's what they've been getting, especially with McKinley Wright, who, when he gets the ball in his hands, the best thing's going to happen. Right. Granted, he's a guard, but it's your best player. Your best player is supposed to score, and he's going to get the ball a lot of times. And he's not able to score in those island type like events. And then also, if he's open, he's not knocking down the shot. So now it's just kind of,
what's your role offensively?
Yeah.
Are you the go-to guy, and now you're about to go and leave when you still have those those questions for you? So that like really stands out for me. As a defender, I just don't feel like he's locked in at all times, and it leads to a lot of fouls. Like, there was a lot of times that he's in foul trouble.
That's tough.
For him, because he's just not locked in, or he is like late in trying to get the blocks, or he's like not as quick. And especially now being a wing instead of the forward that I thought he was going to be, you're not going to be able to stay with those guys that are a lot quicker than the forward who are just standing on the post. So,
like he's not getting down to guard twos and stuff, right?
Yeah,
Exactly,
and you're going to need that, especially when you're not a
wing,
polished offensive guy. If you're coming off the bench and they need you to just score, now you're not thinking about, Jordan Clarkson as a defender. He's a scorer. That's what he's in there to do.
Sure.
So now he's a specialist. He's not going to be able to be that. He's going to have to be a 3-and-D guy at the next level, Jabari is. So I just wish that he had one more year to like just lock in on those things and then just answer those. Like, because I could be wrong.
Sure.
It could be like, hey, I'm a knockdown guy. I'm also a guy that can score like in isolation. I only had 1 year to prove that.
Yeah.
That could be true.
I mean, because he's 19 years old, 20 years old.
Man, so you guys are surprised he's not coming back. It does sound like,
Yeah. And I know people at CU are surprised too. Maybe surprised isn't the best word. They don't think it's the correct decision.
It's a curious choice.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty clear that Jabari wanted to go pro, and his dad was really, really pushing him to go pro. And this was the exact scenario that we would expect that they would have backed that off of that. Like everything played out so poorly that you'd be like, well, this is when you realize that this is probably not the best move. Because it even started with the draft feedback that he got March. I think in March those come out. And that wasn't good. And so that was kind of the start where you're like, okay, things aren't great here. And then to go through this process and still wind up with him going, again, like knowing how hard that they were pushing to go, maybe not surprised, but probably not the best decision, especially because he would have been a top 3 in the odds for offense or for player of the year in the Pac-12 this year if he came back.
Right, he could have come back. It's not like he was coming back to nothing. The opportunity was there to build.
And just to stick there, like say he does come back for a year. Like right now, if he goes, he's going to be like, late second to undrafted.
Just going to ask.
There's not you can't go worse than that right now. Like all you could do is just build your stock on that. And also now at least the NBA knows these measurables that you already have. They're going to go off of, this guy's 6'6" now. Now we have to look at him in a different way. Now they know who you are. Like the writing's on the wall. It's like, okay, can he do this at 6'6"? Can he do that with a 6'9" wingspan instead of the 6'9", 7 foot that we expected? He's still putting up these big numbers for another year. Now he gets better as a shooter because right now it's like a mixed bag. They seen him as a great shooter. They seen him as a not so good shooter. So now this year maybe like levels it. So you're like, okay, he's a 38% shooter for his career. At least it's 3 different years. Like in that first year, he didn't get to play much.
Right.
He didn't grow in the same type of ways. And then you get supplanted into being the guy. That's just a hard
totally
for anyone like that. And then also the evaluation for that is very like hard as well. And then the numbers don't back it at a combine. So things are like, it's not that he's not looking well for him. It's just not what was expected. So now you have to prove it in a different way. And that's why I feel like if he goes for another year, and it doesn't even have to be at CU, it just has to be somewhere where he can prove himself. But why not go where you're already a first team all Pac-12 guy?
They're going to give you the rock anyway.
The team is built around you.
Right.
Yeah. And so, again, it just comes back to him being raw. And with this process, you just throw in the quirks of, you are a tweener. And so that pushes down the odds that you pan out.
Right.
And so we always knew he was raw, but your options at this point, not anymore. You can't go back to school, but to go back to school.
The deadline was today?
Yeah, it was. And I think he signed with an agent who wasn't certified by the NCAA.
Yeah.
So
you still has that chance, like that opportunity to like, all right, I'm going to take it back, right?
I don't think so. I think with that agency, he can't.
Once you sign with an agent,
So there's certified agents. So those are ones that are certified by the NCAA, whatever. You have to spend like a day in a class or something.
Sure.
Yeah. And so if you sign with one of them, you can back out, pay back all the money that you were advanced by June 1st, and you're good to go. With the non-certified agent, you're stuck.
Oh,
locked
okay.
In.
Yeah.
So he took the locked-in approach.
Man, that's
and it's a 1-year suspension, so you can't. It's not worth it. But yeah, I mean, now he goes to the G League. I think regardless of whether he surprises people, winds up in the back of the first round, whether he falls out of the draft, he'll be in the G League in some capacity next year. And for his development, I think the big question is, does he accept a role there and try to play the way that he would have to play to get into the NBA, prove that he can do that? Or does he have the same kind of, I don't want to say his pure hero ball mentality, but he was a bit of a ball stopper.
Sure.
He did want to be the one taking shots. He did see it as his team. And I think that could be dangerous if he doesn't have somebody pushing him to say, okay, remember that you're going to get to the next level by playing defense. So that's where we start here, by rebounding. And he'll have he's never had trouble hustling for rebounds, anything like that. But understanding his offensive role, making quick passes, not always looking to score every time he touches the ball. If he can do all those things, that you could see how he could go in the right direction and figure out how to be a great rebounding three who can come over and block some shots if the matchups are right and knock down some threes. If he does kind of keep the hero ball stuff going, then that's kind of the big question. Does he figure out how to fit into a role?
Real quick, second round safe guess? Is that the safe? Do you think he slides all the way out?
I'd say 50-50 right now.
Okay.
Yeah, just going through the mock drafts, that's what they say. I think Bleacher Report had him going like 43 or something. Most of them don't have him being drafted. They have him around like prospect 70 or so.
Yeah.
So we'll see. We'll see. There's a chance. Having 58 picks this year is not a good situation for him, though.
I think that with him choosing the agent that he chose, there has to be a team or two that are saying, we're going to get you.
Yeah.
So I think that it has to be second round, but like how late, and then also how much are you willing to work to be that type of guy? You're not going to be the best player on your team ever again, actually.
Right.
So even if you go to the G League, you're going to have to go and show these strengths that you have, but you're never going to be the go-to guy again, at any level. So now you have to accept that and also show that you're willing to work on these type of things. Like he goes from the guy to now being a role player once again. And also now you have to star in that role. So he's on some rough waters right now.
Yep.
It'll be interesting to see. I talked about this with Justin Michael yesterday on the Rams pod with David Roddy, but probably not in this market. Definitely not for these guys. But will we get to a point where NIL deals are juicy enough that more and more guys just go, listen, I could use the development time anyway. They're gonna pay me here. I don't need to go to the G League.
Yeah, so, I was talking to somebody at CU yesterday, basically when all this kind of became pretty certain that he was leaving.
Sure.
And they said, again, like, not really sure why this is the path he chose, especially when he could probably make $100,000 in NIL deals. And I was surprised that he chose a number that high, but more plugged in than I am. I guess it's
I'm
out
sure
there.
the money is
it's somewhere.
Yeah.
Especially if you're one of the best players in the Pac-12.
We'll talk a little bit more. We'll put a bow on Walker. Sean Schwartz, former Buff, worked out with the Nuggets. Get a rundown on him. But first, our friends at Breckenridge Brewery want you to know about their Score 2 for a brew deal with the Avalanche Amber Ale, the classic. I don't know if this is true. I call it the OG Breck Brew. Is that true, Kale? Do we know?
Sounds right.
It seems like it. It's like the first one I ever remember seeing.
Yeah.
I drank those before I had any connection to the state. I know that.
I believe it.
But here's the deal. The only thing that's better than the Avs scoring 2 goals in the first period is a free beer with those 2 goals. And Breck Brew understands that, and they want to make your Avalanche Amber Ale free. On game days, you start your Avs game with an Avalanche Amber Ale at any bar or restaurant, and then save that receipt. If the Avs score 2 or more goals in the first period, Breck Brew will pay for your beer via rebate. Just upload your receipt on breckbrew.com.
Wow.
Yeah, how cool is that? How neat is that? Breckenridge Brewery, the official beer of DNVR and Seltzer, and their food's good. They're just homies. Check them out. We love our friends here at DNVR. And it's Wednesday, so just one ad read on the second break, fellas, and we're back already. Gonna put a little bow here on Walker before we get out of here. What do you guys know about him that isn't on the scouting reports, having watched him? Because I feel from the NBA side of this, and Dev, I'm sure you can relate, a lot of these guys, I'm watching videos on YouTube. I'm reading about the strengths and weaknesses. I'm looking up stats. But when you cover a team all season, you cover a player all season, you have context. How did they respond to challenges? What do you know about their personal life or the context of the team that led to them underperforming? You guys get the idea. What do you know about Walker that someone who's only looking at the measurables and such wouldn't know?
I mean, We'll start with the least important one, and that's that he's kind of like just a fun guy to talk with. Like I did enjoy covering him. You know, I remember the first time I talked to him this season, I said like, yeah, so, you know, last year as a freshman, all your classes are online. Now you're on campus. Like, how's that going? He's like, it's crazy. Everywhere I go, people are looking at me. It's like, bro, you're 6'8" with hair sticking straight up out of your head. Yeah, I bet you catch people's eyes out there, don't you? But it's like, I did enjoy talking with him. He is a smart guy. Obviously, the basketball background, there's that really helpful. And that is something that I think I'm maybe was a freshman last year, had an injury, redshirted, but his dad is. I do think that works well. And then also just the rebounding. Like, it's easy to look at the numbers and say like, yeah, he's a good rebounder. He's a freak rebounder. You know, he had 2 games where he didn't score 10 points or more this season. And the reason I think is because he's good for 2 putbacks, 3 putbacks a game. And that gets you halfway there. And so I do think that we shouldn't look at the rebounding as like a thing he does well. It's an elite trait. Now, does he get bodied up by power forwards and it kind of gets neutralized? Do you wind up playing him at the 3 so he's able to kind of leak in and make those plays? What does that look like? You wonder, but you do know that he can do that at a high level.
Dev, should the Nuggets buy into the second round? Is there any fit here at all? Do you see?
I say yes and no. I do say that, you know, I mean, it always makes sense to like have a guy around that is like close to the state. I just feel like you have to say those type of things. But also what the Nuggets need is a small forward, you know, that can play those type of minutes. Is this guy, you know, is Jabari a small forward? No, he's a forward, you know, that his body is now showing that he's a forward, and now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. They also need like a workhorse type of forward that could be a tweener that could do a little bit of both. So like, yes, they do need that, you know, small forward, but also he just going to do the exact same things that Zeke Naji does. And you want a lot more of Zeke Naji this year. I fully expect them to see a lot more Zeke Naji. So now you're having a replacement for a replacement, you know, that just makes
just a redundant forward.
Yeah, it makes it a lot, you know, more difficult. But I do think that he is going to be a second rounder. I do. With the Nuggets, I don't think so.
That's fair. He does fit that mold that I swear every team is looking for more of. We're just these long wings who can defend, who can rebound. And it's like you just wind up with a hole there, it feels like, on half these teams. And if things work out for him, which I think there's a good chance they do, it's just that you're probably on 2-year in the G League timeline. If things work out, then yeah, he could be a very valuable piece. You know, a better Torrey Craig or something like that is probably what you're looking for. That's a bad call. That's a bad call.